choice. Now, you see, here's a key issue. You see where it says pricing? And I'd like to get Doug's opinion on this. We haven't checked with each other ahead of time. Doug and I have been around for a long time, and here's how we always approached it. Even to this day, most realtors approach it this way. I mentioned earlier back at 10 o'clock, they want to hear about your services. They want to hear about pricing, CMA, and yes, the commission schedule is contained in the fabric of this, where you're talking about all your quality services, talking about recent sales in the area, so basing on what you're going to ask for the asking price, and built into this is the commission schedule. But where I find this fascinating is that all along for decades, we all approached the same way. We're under the one umbrella. In the one discussion, we'd say, here are our services, okay, and here's recent sales in the area. And under that one umbrella discussion, we would cover the two big issues. Then we would close trying to get the listing. But by taking that approach, what if hypothetically, as you're going through services, they're okay with that, then you address the issue of pricing and recent sales. What if hypothetically the sellers, who are being very polite, facade image of rapt attention and nodding dutifully, but as soon as you get into the sales, what if the figures that they hear offend all their sensibilities? What if they're raging in the back of their mind saying, is that all? Oh, I thought it was a lot more than that. So they start to get agitated and emotionally upset. Meanwhile, trying to have a demeanor saying, well, no, and they start to almost appear to become a little indifferent. And it ends up that you've burned a psychological bridge with this contentious issue, and because they don't like the feeling they get from this, they package it all together because it was discussed all in one discussion, and they throw the baby out with the bathwater. You've burned such a horrible bridge that then when you try to go for the close at the end of this, they say, nah, we want to sleep on it. I want to think about it. Now we'll get back to you. And as much as you try to cajole and nudge, they won't. They resist the invitation. And you're not even sure why you're not getting it, but it's because they're throwing the baby out with the bathwater because you offended all their sensibilities on that. So it would make some sense. What about where you go through your services and you close, trying to close based on your services, which is what it should be based on anyway, but the language you use to close makes it clear that pricing will come next. Okay, so as an example, at the end of your service presentation, when you know pricing is looming, you just wrap up the whole thing saying, well, from everything I've shown you here, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, do I appear to be the type of realtor that could do a good job on your behalf? Now, that's not a close, that's a wrap-up. What are they going to say out of social politeness? Well, you seem pretty good. I mean, you've told us a lot. Before they can throw out a disclaimer, say, tell you what, I've got a great idea. Why don't we go back through the house, we can measure up the rooms, come back, we can fill out all the paperwork. We're going to go over in great detail recent sale prices in the area. You can select the final asking price that you feel comfortable with, and you can let me get started. Does that sound fair? Let me repeat it. Tell you what, I've got a great idea. Why don't we go back through the property? Now, unless you get Planet Measuring or somebody to do it, then skip the measuring. So if you're going to skip that, you just say, I'll tell you what, I've got a great idea. Why don't we go over all the paperwork? I'm going to show you in exacting detail all the recent sale prices that have taken place in the market area in the last 18 months. You can select the final asking price that you feel comfortable with, of course, and based on that, you can let me get started. Does that sound fair? And they've done through studies that if I say to that decision maker, you're in the driver's seat, all benefits to you, total autonomy, no restrictions, does that sound fair? Very difficult for the respondent to say, what, I'm in the driver's seat, all benefits to me, no restrictions, I have total autonomy, I'm in the driver's seat? No, that doesn't sound fair. It would almost seem nonsensical to disagree with the suggestion. And say, well, we have to agree on an asking price. Say, no, I understand completely. If we come to agreement on the asking price, you've seen my services, may I represent you on the market based on the services? Which is what they should be deciding on anyway. Are any of you closing on service and making it clear price comes next? Probably not. Do you discuss the whole thing in one umbrella discussion, then go for the close?
I think so often the listing presentation becomes a pricing presentation.
It does. Yeah.
And more emphasis, more time is put into the pricing of it, and less time into the services.
As a matter of fact, you could even, correct me if I'm wrong, but as you start to go in about services, some people who are rather abrupt by nature say, I never mind all the mumbo jumbo, just tell me about prices. And they just want to cut to the chase. So I'd like to suggest to you as a sales group, you could just say to them, well, maximum exposure will get you maximum value, so with your permission, first I'd like to explain the marketing strategy of how we're going to get all the exposure, more qualified showings, and that'll corroborate the price we can ask. If I can please show you the mechanics of how we're going to get all these showings, and then that'll corroborate exactly the price range that we feel for optimum value. You mind if I just take that a few minutes and outline that to you? Okay,
I don't even bring out the CMA part of it until we've already sat and gone through the services. Like I have a separate booklet
right?
with my services and explanations of the market and so on and so forth. And I just pull that out, close the folder on the CMA and open it up, and they start looking at that with me, and we start chatting about that and go through the services and everything. And when I'm done talking about all the services, I ask them, is there anything that you were expecting that I haven't mentioned tonight? And that gives them an opportunity to say, well, the last guy that was here said this or whatever, or no, that looks really great to us.
Mhm.
And then we can go on and talk about pricing afterwards.
Okay, so you make it two separate
It's
factions.
two separate factors.
And you had a question?
Yeah, my question is like, I think everybody's, all homeowners or even buyers and sellers, they're so educated by the internet about their own house's value. Like they have a very, very clear.
They have an
say,
idea, yeah.
My house is worth at like 650. And although like, if we analyze it and they come to like 600, something like that. Like it's always like 5 to 7% over, their value, like actual value, market value, like their expectation, and they're so strong, and they think they're so educated and they're so knowledgeable about their house. Their house is the, best off the street. And then I think it's like, I want my house to be at this,
First of all, it's interesting is that the human nature, when they say the pattern is, you're showing me these figures, ours is worth 6 to 7% more. Isn't it interesting that that tends to factor in and accommodate the commission that is going out the door? So they're trying to offset things to a degree possibly. The other thing is when you run into this common objection where you're showing, saying, here are the last 3 properties like yours that sold, where would you like to price yours? And they're kicking around where they're floating this figure, and meanwhile, it's more like this. What would you come back with an effective response to not slap them around too much and at least have them hopefully listen to reason? Yes?
Buyers have access to all this information that we have in front of us. Why would they pay more? Would you?
Yeah, if you were the buyer doing your due diligence, being a big ticket purchase, and you see these recent sales, you see the market value is around this amount, why would you as a buyer want to pay this amount where it doesn't seem to be warranted? Okay?
If 3 agents are all relatively competent and using the same information, the same comparables, they should be coming up with pretty much the same suggested price. I shouldn't be 625 and you're 675, because somebody's wrong here. So the pricing to me should be the minor part of it, because here's the facts and figures of what people are paying for this kind of house.
Now, you bring up a great point, Doug. I just want to make sure we're on the same page. We're now talking about where they are getting an overinflated figure from another realtor that came in, which is quite common. So they're saying we want this much, and they say, well, an agent came in last night and said they could get us this. So let's say you're saying 720 and they're saying 790 or 780 or whatever. And you're saying, may I ask how you came to this determination? Well, an agent came in last night and said you can get us 780. So we know, of course, that the agent's trying to buy the listing.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a piece of language for you, if you use it in the right context. You say, well, I understand, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you want to get the most money for your property. May I ask you, this other person who came in last night, so you don't even call them a realtor now, you say, this other person that came in last night, did they show you anything in writing to corroborate that opinion, or did they just tell you that figure verbally? Now, this in sales is known as a safe question, because there's a 99% chance they're going to come back and say, well, no, he didn't show us it, but he said he could get it. They cling to it, they want it. Because it's not likely that a realtor is going to fraudulently misrepresent a written CMA. So you've got a pretty safe bet. They're going to say, well, no, he just told us, but he said he could get it for us. And then, no, I know you want the most money. And that goes back to your comment, Doug. You say, you see, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, something about our industry. Any realtor you talk to in our profession, we all have access to the same resale information off the MLS system, the same statistics, the same sales that have taken place. And I'm not trying to fault that person in particular, but we get some people in our industry, they come out on an appointment, they get a little overexcited, a little enthusiastic, and sometimes they'll tell a seller a price that they want to hear. And in our industry, that's known as trying to buy the listing. You can use the L word there because you're criticizing what they're doing, saying what they're trying to do is buy the listing. Now please, when you think about it, if this is the biggest investment people own in a lifetime, it's an important matter to be sure. If somebody like that in our industry is willing to do that kind of a deception right up front, is that the kind of person you want representing your vested interests at the offer table when you really think about it?
I usually say something to them to the effect of, you know, I'd love to get you that much money, and if the market is gonna bear it, then that much money will come, but I'm gonna use actual facts and figures to determine the proper price for you, and I don't wanna be the one to come back and ask you for a price reduction later on.
That's a different approach, of course, and some of you I saw where your eyebrows were raised. Now, a single word betrays a great design. Just to be careful about this, when you're saying, I'm not following a person, we all have access to the same resale information. And what they're doing is they come and get over enthusiastic, tell you a price you want to hear. In our industry, it's known as referred to as trying to buy the listing. And you can even expand on it and say, where they get it at that higher price, there are no showings, they keep coming back every week or two to get reductions till finally it's at the price it should be in the first place. So you can really spell it out for them, saying, and if this is the biggest investment, you know, in a lifetime, if anybody, an individual like that is willing to do that kind of a deception, if you don't like the word deception, if you think it's too strong, but I think it is a deception, it's a bold-faced lie. Take the word deception and supplant it with the word disservice. If anybody in our industry is willing to do that kind of a disservice, is that the kind of person you want looking after your vested interests at the offer table when offers come in? Pause. Aren't I the person you'd rather have in your corner when you really think about it? Say yes. You don't say yes, but you get the idea.
You could say yes if you're
Actually,
going for it.
You could. Sometimes they chuckle at it, yeah.
You can say yes.
See, you want to be assertive. It's funny, we don't want to be known as aggressive, but there's nothing wrong with being assertive. A certain amount of tenacity. Also, how many of you have been in real estate for less than 2 years? Okay. Well, 3 hands, okay. Sometimes I hear the concern from the new babies. Anybody under 3 years is a new baby, okay. They say, well, how can little old me vanquish and go out and get any listings compared to the veterans with a much vaunted track record? I don't have anything to brag about. How can I possibly prevail in getting listings? I can assure you, having trained thousands of brand new people over 3 decades, brand new people vanquish much vaunted veterans every day of the week. So what do you think happens if a brand new baby, wet behind the ears, with no discernible track record, and no, it's not that they're a friend, there's no hidden agenda, they each get called off pamphlets. The newbie goes in, tells their story, the veteran goes in, tells their story, and it's not commission, and sometimes the brand new baby gets the listing. What do you think happens in that scenario? Why did that take place? Yeah, it comes down to energy and enthusiasm. Those are the 2 key components, energy and enthusiasm, law of vibration. Right? See, just to paint the picture for you, I'm not saying that 20-year veterans become complacent or resting on their laurels of past performance, but you get where a 20-year veteran, we're so comfortable slapping transactions together, working knowledge, very comfortable routine. A 21-year veteran can be called off their pamphlets, and they come walking in. So there's the 21-year veteran dragging their tail in, very low energy, and they've got the perennial tan on their face from the 3rd vacation that year, and they've got the Samsonite luggage under the eyes, and they meet these people for the first time. They say, yeah, these are my credentials, these are my services, I sell more houses than God, push hard, 3rd copy's yours. And the decision makers are suitably unimpressed, saying, well, think about it, the veteran goes, yeah, okay, leaves. The next night, Susie Q comes in, cheerleader on steroids, practically doing cartwheels. And she's saying, what does she say? Her spiel is, this isn't just my job, this is my career. I don't want you to just be happy with the service. I want you to be ecstatic with the service. You come here and go, let me show you what you do, just say go! And they go, just watch your head explode. They go, yeah. They say, that's what we want in our corner, this type of thing.
Taped me on
I know.
that.
Yeah, just say go, yeah. You know, in the US and New England, with FSBOs, for sale by owners, not under mere posting, but to this day there's a big chain of offices. Whenever in their region in New England they see a for sale by owner, it says no agents, they send the latest new agent who's only been in the business 3 days out, little Jimmy. So little Jimmy will come, some trepidation, knock on the door, and they say, yeah, what do you want? He says, yeah, Jimmy Jones, ABC Real Estate. My company sent me over. They saw it said no agents. They sent me over today because I'm the closest thing to no agent in my office. See, what I want to leave you with is, not to go back to Mike Ferry because I'm not a big fan, but he had a good point on this. The acronym PLAPL, where Mr. Ferry pointed out that in real estate sales, the logic is you prospect on a consistent basis, get lead generation, hopefully get an appointment to do your listing presentation, to secure the listing on paper. Prospect, get leads, get an appointment, do the presentation, get the listing on paper. Now the 5 pieces of the puzzle, one of these 5 pieces tends to be the death knell, the albatross around the neck of most realtors causing them to fail. So what do you think, human nature? Which one do you think?
lead generation?
Presentation?
Yeah, some people would say human nature prospecting because a lot of people don't like to do it. But actually, Mr. Ferry said, no, actually, it's your presentation. And here's what he's getting at. Let's say you have John and Mary. John and Mary are working at the same brokerage. They're not partners, but they work under the same roof at the same company. So one day, a rainy afternoon, they're having tea or coffee commiserating in private. And John says to Mary, gee, Mary, never asked you, but if you had to be objective and judge your own listing presentation, how would you gauge it? Is it really scintillating good? What would you say to describe your listing presentation? And Mary says, my listing presentation, yeah, it's okay. It's pretty average, no great shakes. Yeah, it's okay. And because Mary thinks her presentation is just okay, not engaging, what does Mary do instinctively? She pulls her horns in, and she doesn't want to do any prospecting because God forbid she gets a lead an appointment, she might actually have to tell her story. And she knows it's not going to be well received. Whereas conversely, if you thought you had such an engaging, impactful presentation, where at the end of it, so many benefits and such great rapport, the decision makers are probably thinking and say, where have you been all my life, where do I sign? Overstate and make a point. But if they gave you a positive reaction, if you kept getting a positive reaction on a consistent basis on every listing appointment, it would give you the impetus, the encouragement to instinctively put out a lot more feelers because you could hardly wait to get this setting knowing you were going to get a warm, beneficial reaction. See, after today, as you get the text, and I assume you're just going to email all the attachments, so it's the 18-page booklet. All the language is contained that I could cover in 2 hours in the booklet. My memory is no better than yours. If you want to just as a power group get together, never mind about your monthly meeting, but just here in this office, have a tea or a coffee, and just commiserate and split up into twos and just practice, drill, rehearse, verbalizing the language out loud. If you go over and over again like an actor learning a script, after you do this about 6 or 7 times, you can stand up here and just rattle off the way I'm rattling it off. My memory's no better than yours. Okay? And my cautionary note is, as you read each paragraph, if you think to yourself, I love the logic of this paragraph, it is beneficial, I just don't couch my words in those semantics, then I give you the open invitation. Take each paragraph, take a legal pad, you can tweak and modify and cannibalize it just a little bit, just massage it until it's in your own comfortable semantics, but don't change it too much because then it betrays the logic of the paragraph. And then once you get into your own comfortable semantics, type that up and then read that out loud a bunch of times until you know it by heart. Don't you find it? There are only about, say, a dozen key objections that we get. And if you know how to become proficient at really having an effective, diplomatic, consultative, professional answer, vanquishing all the speed bumps you encounter, that would give you the encouragement, the confidence, the resolve to go out and instinctively talk to more people because you're so self-assured that no matter what they say to you for an objection, you've got a very credible professional reply, so you're never going to suffer loss of pride, ego, face. So the old adage, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? It's amazing how far you can get with it. Okay, questions? You're so
I
quiet.
asked a question you didn't answer.
I did.
What's
the question?
Feel bad.
Is it better to do 100 door knocking postcards or 500 distributed postcards?
The thing is, both have merit, but then I went off on a tangent saying about knocking the doors of the exact street, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but here's the thing. And I know I covered it last time I was here. For brevity, okay, if you've got 34 Elm listed there and you've got a lot on your plate and you want to just blast the region with the pamphlets, that's fine. You can just do it through Canada Post. But it doesn't supplant or take the place of the VIP invitation on the entire street or the just listed pamphlets where if you know human nature for this type of property, these houses or these townhouses or these semis would be really prevalent for being suitable possible buyers for this category, then I would still go the human factor and target those little pockets. But if you want to blanket the entire area, you can do it through Canada Post. There's no harm in overkill where everybody gets a pamphlet, but then you take the added measure of going to these 2 or 3 particular hot spots. Everybody understand what I'm getting at?
Sounds like both is right.
Face to face.
Sounds like
is
what?
always
Sounds like both is right. Do both.
It is, but both have their own merit as to why you're doing it. Just for brevity, blanket the entire region to leave no stone unturned, but an added hint of degree of motivation might be on these given streets, and an added motivation is that you invite the neighbors to the private VIP, they come out, and even if they don't want to take action then, you keep pamphleting the area, and 2 years later, one of the people that came out to your private viewing, they finally want to sell, and they say, who should we get? And they say, Hey, what about, that gal, she did the open house for the neighbors on the street, that was innovative, that was really professional, what was her name? They racked their brain, see your sign, pamphlet, and they call you, and 2 years later, a listing drops in your lap because you suitably impressed them at the time by inviting the neighbors. See, the other thing about the door knocking, and I covered this last time, it's called sweet spot selling. I'll tell you something, you make nice money just doing this. Every time a fresh sign pops up, not with Century 21, but Remax, Royal LePage, it could be Home Life, whatever. As soon as that sign pops up, the odds of that listing agent knocking on any doors on the street are virtually zero. So what you want to do is, if that sign pops up Wednesday, Thursday, go and take a look at the property, and then on Saturday, knock on 10, 10, and 20 doors. You remember I shared this last time I was here? It's target marketing, it's shooting fish in a barrel. It's not your listing. You don't try to knock at the door and lay claim to that. You just knock and say, hi, I'm busy, Mark, a lot of buyers, are you thinking of selling? 10, 10, 20, 40 doors on a Saturday. Maybe you only talk to 11 people because people peek out but they don't answer the door. But this sign is a catalyst. If anybody else has been thinking of possibly selling but sitting on the fence, that sign pushes their button more than any dinner party conversation, any chatting with a realtor at an open house. If they've been sitting on the fence and the Joneses put their house up, what do these people do? They come home that first night, see the sign and say, hey honey, the Joneses put their house up. Remember we were talking about wanting to sell? Maybe this is the best time to sell. Or hey, ours is nicer than theirs for aesthetics. Why don't we go out at the same time, same buyer shoe? We'll look favorable in comparison. We'll make more money. But they have this chat because that pushed their buttons. And you come along and just say you're thinking of selling. You're going to hit pay dirt where one of them's going to have their jaw hanging slightly saying, what do you got, telepathy? Matter of fact, we are talking about it. So if you do 40 doors and talk to 11 people, get a sandwich and a soft drink or a coffee, scoot over 3 streets on that same Saturday, and do another 10, 20 doors of another sign, talk to 12, 13 people, the magic aggregate total is 25 people face to face. So if you start at 12 noon and go to about 4:30, in 4.5 hours, if you're diligent and organized, you can talk to 11 or 12 people around one sign, have a quick refreshment, pop over, talk to 12 or 13 around another sign. Aggregate total is 25. You must not stop before then. 25 face-to-face times 4 Saturdays, that's 100 people you talk face-to-face around fresh signs. You will get at least 2, probably 3 good leads. 3 good leads would equate to 1 fresh listing. So with your market price range on the listing end, would you make 14 grand or 16 grand or whatever? So if you were told to go out every Saturday, it's summer, right? Every Saturday for 4 hours, knock on doors, no matter what the answer is. If you do this and talk to 100 people over 4 Saturdays, I'll sign in blood that I'll give you a check for 14 grand, no matter what happens. Would you do it?
I did it, I got it.
You got a listing.
Yeah.
This was set up, wasn't it?
You'd almost think so, wouldn't you?
No, but it does work.
It does work.
It does.
No, but as a trader, I could say just beat your brains out knocking on the doors, but just around fresh signage, and it does work. Isn't it sweet revenge that that Remax sign was the catalyst to push the buttons of your next newfound client? Success is the best revenge, by the way. Don't you find success is the best revenge? Any other questions at all? Speaking of language, every time I go to a seminar, you save $10 if you want to avail yourself. My book on language skills, it covers every objection you get. Very diplomatic answer in there. If you order online with shipping and handling, it's more like 40, but it's 30 flat taxes in. I can take credit card or cash or check, whatever. Please feel free to go up and take a look. There's no obligation. You might want to consider investing in your future. You've got the book too? Well, then I wonder why you got the listing.
Thanks you. Give her $5.
Anyways, thank you very much. Best wishes, and really hammer it out of the park. Knock it out of the park for the rest of the fall market. Thank you. Thank you. My great pleasure.